Then the orb lay in the earth, ready for the blacksmith.
There she is once again. My hammer beats have stolen her sleep, summoned her deep from her dreams, brought her here to the stone where I thunder my blows. In the wink between iron clink and blink, I make out her shape shift like a bat past the outer frame of my forge, swooping in behind the wood store. I guess she thinks that I'm deaf, just like all the rest, but it's not from the noise or the pound of the roar. I simply choose not to hear any more. She flutters in close, drawn to the flame. Honeyflower she's named, with a bright smile just the same, like the world is one constant amusement, just as her mother must have been once. She must think I can't see around, with my eyes always locked down, beating out the iron-hot rhythm, pulsing its sound. But I can see well enough. I just choose not to meet an eye with an eye. I'd blaze up the bellows again till the heat whoops white, sparking wide-eyed wonder in her sleep-grubby eyes. Flame-fixed she stares through her knotted straw hair as the crust of her fears burn away. I sense her kindred desire, that longing for the forge fire, just like myself at her age. At a place and a time far from here, I was the child bending the knee to this same blazing altar, where the blacksmith performed his ritual of rock, sacrificing to fires that outshone the sun. I clapped in time with his drum hammer drills, feeling the thrill as ore turned to tool. He was the creator who supplied all our needs, the spear that secured our meat, the sickle that reaped our fields, and our protection with the sword and the shield. Yet we gave him no worthwhile regard, never welcomed him into our hearths, kept him out in the shadows, suspicious of the source of his craft, wary of the dragon's breath that he wrought. I think he probably knew from the start that I was the one, watching, my hands always alert, ready to take up the beat, eagerly hammering the air to my own overtone, believing I was forging the song, playing along, and making the iron rod sing. So I began to study his art, forcing remarks in the gap between each ting and each tang, every clink, every clank. I whispered my questions on the bellowed air, and roared my excitement in the furnace's glare. I guess I just wore him down in the end. With his will bent, he gave a final shake of his head, and a smile lit from his beard. He wiped the sweat from his eyes, bade me to sit down, and began to unmask his skills. As he talked of his past, I offered up my pink hands, and he placed them softly into his rough palms. There my fingers traced every calloused, mishammered reminder, every iron nick, every fire-seared scar of his story. There I learnt the smith's life, hand on hand. He seared its iron lore into my skin. Then he took up a fine-fashioned sword and unmade its form, untold me the process of how it was born, unground and unsmoothed it, back to dull iron blade, unheated it, unbeat it, unclanked it, unclinked it, returned it to its base iron length, then plunged it back into water, back into flame, right before the bellows ever they came, right back to the time when the ore and the dross had lain in the earth, married together as one. Of course, me being me, I had to see, had to feel it through my own skin. So one day I stole in and tapped together his tools, felt their clink echo me sharp inside. Then I took up the hammer, rubbed its sweat-anointed handle, gripped it till its twine cut me deep, and heaved its dead weight through the air, putting iron on the stone. I took my first blow. It vibrated through every bone, cleansed me clear from head to toe, awoke the awe of my heart, and fired the molten blood round my veins. He came running to the off-call of the iron, caught me hammer in hand. I dropped it and ran, But he called me, beckoned me back, and my training began. Before long I could wield hammer and tong, tune them into my song, and paint with fire in my dreams. But I didn't train alone. The blacksmith had no son, and so they chose another to follow his craft. But this boy was slow, tripped over stone, spilt water, broke bone. I was the first to learn everything. Each piece of knowledge I gained, I welded in place with the rest, until the whole form forged into one, and I knew all the iron's reasons, could trace all its ways. Then at the appointed time, he chose me to bear up his flame. Of course, Mother forbade it, and Father raged when he heard it. Who ever heard of a woman blacksmith, they said. It's man who makes his sweat from the fire and muscles up the iron. The source of my sweat would lay in the field, in the bed, in the berth, not the forge. I spat my answer right back and got a slap for my mouth. The elders agreed. They wouldn't accept and refused to yield. Iron wheels clashed, I would not bend. But outnumbered, outranked, and outsexed, I knew my time here would end. They wouldn't stop me, couldn't stop me. The fire was lit, my fingers had the hammer itch, and my head chimed to a different beat. Not one heard in the cooking or crop, not in the sewing or suckling of child. So I hitched up a horse and britched myself up, strapping my female form down, with my cropped hair tucked up in a hat, then stole off with his tools to ply my trade alone as a man. While I foolishly allowed my mind to burn back the years, relentlessly, pointlessly I've been beating this iron. Now it's grown cold and my wearied arm slows to a stop. Honeyflower has not moved. She looks on bemused. So I return to the only thing that I know. Reheat the iron till it glows. Snatch it out, supple enough not to shatter, and place it back on the stone. As I hammer again, I see my token within, a hawked-winged brooch for her mother's red cloak. I sense its wings already full-formed, soaring in freedom's flight, but I doubt she'll allow herself to accept. Even here I'm outcast and feared. I know I've come from outside and like to keep myself close, but all seems suspicious of the Smiths' way, doubtful of the things they don't understand. I've heard their stories, their whispers call out on the wind, telling of how when the sun's fast asleep, I fly through the night to hunt out its warmth, netting its napping glow to feed to my forge. Now each time that winter falls cold, and earth's ground refuses to melt, they curse me for stealing all the heat from the sun. I hear steps, but keep my focus ahead. It's the child's mother, Harebell, fierce, her blue eyes and stern her stance, as she silently shoos her daughter away home to bed. I expect Harebell also to turn back to where her man will awake. Often I hear his grunts and his snuffles boring through the night, and see her spent look in the day. Yet she remains, still, watching me. Her headscarf falls undone, and her hair shakes out full and long. I hear the soft swish of her shift, and her breath come quick, as she begins to fill in the shape of the space down beside me. She's folding herself into her skin, cold, drawing out my raw heat. Then I feel the air from her lips trouble the hair of my neck, and her eyes aim directly at me. I try to temper my senses, keep strong, in control, but her stare pierces as sharp as the awl. I'm sure she detects me beneath all the layers, woman to woman. She knows what I am, who I am, exposing the molten core at the centre of me. I break her hold, jam the finger of iron back into the flame, but with too much force, and it makes the fire flecks fly. As I try to tamp down and tame them, I hear her footsteps trudge softly away. Our brittle bond moment is shattered into 1,000 silvered shards, each one of them slicing my heart. And all of this time I find I've been holding my breath, Keeping all of it in, at last I gasped out for air and panted in fast, trembling all over but not from the cold. Abandoning my work to the night, I stumbled back to the roundhouse alone, undisguise myself, unwrap myself, comb out my hair, unstrap my breasts, and lay myself down on the animal skins. There I allow the cool air to caress, let it seek out the hollows, fanning my flame into glow, until I feel the heat in my limbs, bending them soft to the touch. Then I take control, reshaping, remaking myself over again. As if blown by bellows, I push for fires hotter than red, rising from the cherry to yellow up to the heights of the white heat that flares through my hips. It's then I sense myself beginning to melt. I wish I could roar out this heat, but then they'd come running, and all would be discovered. So I pack my sound tight until my head roars alight, and I'm thrust in and out of the fire as my molten ore flows. I am the crafter, making every turn, every twist, sustaining this fierce flame through the night, till my world finally comes back to itself. At the morning's forge, I'm sick of pretense, tired of not being allowed to be who I am. Just place me out on a pyre, let my body flame in the heat, till my mind sparks to the sun, and what's left ashes the earth, reaping a harvest of wheat. But for now I have to reforge my focus, let the slag pour out from the ore. But something is blocking the channel. I forage around with my tongs till they seize on a sphere. There it pulses, its glow sustained, an embryonic fallen sun. Compelled, a child coaxed to the flame, I reach out, naked hands set fast, braced for the onset scorch of pain. Yet cool this orb is to the touch, and smooth it slips into my skin. Then, as it winks into a spin, clarity floods me from within, like the numb of winter water. It fills my mind with fleeting forms of generations long past, memories of tools and crafts, and those whose work was functional and fair, all told to me in an instant. But unlike a dream, I know that they'll be safely held for all the time that's left to be. Then a glimpse of a time that I don't understand. A stark-walled room where someone clothed in white gown inserts a sphere into some sort of contraption which pulsates into life with a wink of red eyes. I clasp close the orb, sense freedom flames flare deep within, then throw off all my clothes and hammer out my naked song to the world.